Welcome back to another episode of Small Market Bias presented by FanDuel. I am excited for this special guest we have in store for today's episode. This is a former player who has been in the NBA Finals and defeated the New York Knicks way back in 1999 where the Spurs won the series in 5 games. The third overall pick by the Spurs in 1989. He's a two-time All-Star. If you walk into the Frost Bank Center and you look upward, you're going to see his jersey, number 32, retired. And of course, Spurs fans, you are familiar with him. This is Sean Elliott joining us on the pod. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Paul. It would be better if we had won last night.
Yeah, I knew we kind of had this, pre-scheduled, and I was like hoping that, hopefully this is a win. Let's have a win. And then no, it did not happen. So, I mean, it's fine. Yeah. We're going to talk about the game. So you can just kind of provide your initial thoughts and reaction to what we saw last night with the game 1 loss by 10 points there in San Antonio.
We saw a little bit of our experience rear its head there in the fourth quarter. I would say that's the biggest thing, and the experience of the Knicks, and in particular Jalen Brunson. He's a terrific player, and the thing I think people don't understand that we do here in San Antonio, that he was a pain in our side when he was a backup point guard for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, he really put it on us when he was a member of the Mavericks, and so now Knicks fans see what we saw for many years, that Jalen Brunson, who's a devastating offensive player who, for us, when they had Luka, you didn't feel good when Luka went off the floor, and he came on when Brunson came on. And so he did a great job in the fourth quarter, take care of the basketball, running the offense at the right pace, getting the right shots. He's just tricky and clever, and he brings a different type of weaponry to the game than SGA does. He shoots a little better from beyond the arc, and he's a better finisher at the rim, frankly. And so that creates a lot of problems for us, and so we have our work cut out for us. But, we made a lot of really immature mistakes, I thought, on both ends of the floor. Got a little rush there when it looked like the game was getting out of hand. And even when we took the lead, I don't think we executed the way we needed to on both ends of the court. And so that's something that I'm sure Mitch will address in film session today and in practice, and hopefully we can clean that up come Friday.
As a former player, what was the difference in terms of the Spurs went from guarding Denny Avdia to Anthony Edwards to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander this run, to all right-handed players like to get to their right, whereas now you're going against a lefty, someone who, and that's not just that he only finishes on his left side, Brunson. He's able to get, he's sneaky. There was a little reverse layup he had where he goes to his right hand, and just I know they can practice against like their own teammates, like Dylan Harper's a lefty, De'Aaron Fox is a lefty, but just as a former player, like what is it like you're playing against a lot of right-handed players most of the time, but then you have these crafty left-handed players like Brunson.
Yeah, no, there's definitely something to be said for that. I mean, lefties always present a problem in every sport where you're tasked with either guarding them, confronting them. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, you go to tennis, lefties are sneaky. You go to lefty pitchers, they're sneaky. You go to lefty basketball players, obviously they've been a problem over the years. Manu Ginobili was a problem with his unorthodox style of play for a lot of players. For me, people always ask me, hey, who are the toughest players you guard? Obviously, number one was Michael Jordan. I throw Kobe in there. Dominique Wilkins was a nightmare for me. But the other guy who was an absolute nightmare for me was Chris Mullin, a lefty who was clever, sneaky, could really shoot the ball. Lefties traditionally, Paul, can really fill it up. It's hard for me to recall a left-handed player who couldn't shoot the ball, who didn't have great touch, who wasn't clever, because they're, grown up lefty, obviously you're playing in a right-handed world most of the time. And it's like you figure out different nuances to the game. And your approach is just a little bit more clever, a little bit more cerebral. And that's what Jalen Brunson is bringing to the table.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that insight on them. So before we continue with the series, I just kind of wanted to, obviously we haven't heard you on the broadcast since the regular season ended, you and Jacob Toby, but I just wanted to kind of just get your thoughts on this Spurs getting to this point where they're just 4 wins away from an NBA championship. We saw them go through the Blazers in 5 games, then they defeated the Wolves in 6 games. And then this young team goes into Oklahoma City and closes out the series on the road against the defending champions. What is your thoughts on this team getting this far so far, with the chance to win the title here?
Our guys have really grown up. I thought for us to be successful at the beginning of the year, I said we'd be successful if we made the playoffs. We needed to get some playoff games under our belt. I felt like, OKC the year before had gotten to the second round. They had the best record in the league. Then the next year they go ahead and win it. And we had yet to get a playoff game under our belt. And so I really felt like in order for us to not get lapped by them, we needed to get some playoff games under our belt. So I thought it was a bonus to get out of that second round. I felt like going into the Western Conference Finals, I know some people didn't want to hear it, but we were playing with house money. No matter what happened in that series, we had made great strides. And then I thought, well, next year we were truly going to be contenders and have a real chance to contend for a championship. But here we are. And, I just think that all this experience, especially when you're playing in Game 6 and Game 7 in that Western Conference Finals, where those are elimination games for you. You've got to play your best basketball or you're going home. And our guys really, in both those games, put on a clinic. Big blowout win in Game 6. Game 7, you win down the stretch with a lot of clutch plays, great defensive plays. You move the ball offensively, and you got big-time shots. And so I thought that was a huge bonus as far as our development is concerned. And so I like where our guys are at. We talked about it earlier. I thought they made a few mistakes, and we had a little bit of our youth started to show there in the fourth. But all in all, this has been a very successful run, and it's only going to make us better in the long run.
Yeah, I remember back on August 14th, they were only projected with like 44 games. It'd be a play-in team, and now here they are, 4 wins from an NBA title, just where they're at right now. Let's go to jump into the offense now. For the Spurs, obviously, one player you look at all the time if a Spurs do lose a game is usually Victor. Is he scoring near the paint, or is it more so from like jump shots? And so you have to give the Knicks defense some credit. They had Karl-Anthony Towns guarding him. A lot of his possessions had to start either from beyond the arc and try to make his way into drives, but then the Knicks kind of collapsed on him. When he did get touches, inside the arc, it was a lot of times like from that mid-range area, he had to like turn around and figure out where he's going to go. And so I haven't got to watch all the tape yet, but maybe they could throw some more like that off-ball screening action to kind of get him cutting a little bit more like they've done in the past. Just what did you think about his game and what the team can do to make some adjustments to get him some more points, inside by the rim?
Well, I think his offense is going to get better the more times that he faces defenses like he saw last night. He's seeing a lot of different looks. It's going to take a while to adjust and for him to process all these looks that he's getting. And so, I feel like he's more successful when he works inside out. I feel like the game has always been inside out. I talk about that on the broadcast all the time. I talk about, the three-point ball is great, but that's the fries on the plate. That's the baked potato. The steak, the meat is in the paint. And that's where I feel like, most bigs should really make their living and have a big impact. And so it'd be nice, or I would like to see him catch the ball closer to the basket, more in a sweet spot as opposed to catching it on the perimeter. And there's a defender left and there's a defender right. And so, it takes a while to make a decision. And so a lot of the time when he's catching the ball, even when he's catching it in a sweet spot, it's got to be a quick decision. He's got to figure it out pretty quickly which way he wants to go, not allow the defenders to just be there ready to tee off on him. And again, I would like to see him catch the ball a little bit closer to the basket, start inside out. And the other thing, Paul, that I've talked about, and I think Victor alluded to it earlier, and it's one of Pop's things is playing off of 2 feet. It was the same thing Lute Olson would tell us in college, getting 2 feet and a solid base underneath you so you can go straight up instead of fading left or fading right on jump shots. And then the ball fades with you. And those shots are difficult to make as opposed to going straight up and down, getting a solid base underneath you so you can absorb any kind of contact that might be initiated.
Okay. Yes. And going back to what you said about, starting off inside out, that's definitely a message that Coach Mitch Johnson mentioned last night in his post-game press conference. And that's kind of one thing that I've kind of been watching, and it took place a lot in those losses against OKC, is that as you're watching the 2-point scoring, if the Spurs are losing that battle, they end up like their record right now in the playoffs is 2-5. And I think that's so much more important, like what you mentioned there. Coach Johnson said that, they got to put pressure on the rim first and then spray out to the shooters. And that definitely is just like, I kind of track that because of what you kind of talk about on the broadcast a lot, is not getting so happy with the 3-ball there. Right. And so just what else do you think about I know that Dylan got into the paint a lot, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle as well, but what do you think they could do just to kind of get more looks in the paint, like you're mentioning, outside of Victor?
Yeah, I mean, try to establish Victor right off the bat. That'd be big. Try to establish him inside because either way, if he catches it close to the basket, even if you're playing him with talent or whoever, you're going to force a double team. You're going to force help to at least suck in. Then you got to make a good decision with the basketball, getting it out, swinging it around, finding the open shooter on the perimeter. That's how we played with Timmy and David Robinson. That was our MO. I mean, we're not coming down jacking up a three right off the start. We're looking inside first because guys on the perimeter, we know as shooters, we're going to feed off of those guys. We're going to throw it in. We know double teams are coming. We've worked on this over and over and over again. We know where we're going to get our shots from. So it makes the game easier for everybody else on the perimeter if that big guy is established. So you've got to establish him early on. And if we do that, then again, the game becomes easier for the perimeter players. But Paul, we're living in a world now where the game has changed and it's more outside in. And you have, things like making basic entry passes that, have kind of gone the way of the dodo bird. It's kind of extinct. And so, like, for us, it was always working on entry passes, getting the big guy the ball. Now it's a whole different ball game. And so it's kind of hard to reverse that kind of thinking, but we've got to find a way to establish him early.
And then regarding the game on offense, what did you think about just the rookie, Dylan Harper? I mean, just his impact coming in there, 10 points in the first quarter. I saw like all sorts of records that he set yesterday by doing that in his first NBA Finals game. Just his ability to kind of get to the paint. He was attacking players one-on-one with his his craftiness, his spinning kind of moves, finishing. And then he did mention that he felt like he kind of took his foot off the gas there in that second half. And even Coach Johnson was asked, should he have played more minutes in the fourth quarter? And Coach Johnson said he was definitely on the table, but of course, they elected to more so go with their veterans, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle out there. What did you think about Harper's game?
Love his game. Well, I've been in love with that kid since the first time I saw him play, and I've been saying it all year. He's more than a superstar. He just plays well beyond his years. He plays like he's been in the league for a long time. He's an extremely confident young man. No moment is too big for him. And he showed that last night, coming off the bench in the biggest stage in the league, and he put on a show there in the first half. I think everybody, Knicks fans, Spurs fans, and especially Knicks fans, understood watching him play what a weapon he is and what he's going to become. And so, I would love to see him on the floor more. I've been saying that all year, but that's the coach's decision. And sometimes in these situations. I've seen every single coach do this. Everyone that I've played for or watched, they like to stick with the rotation that got them there. And but I have seen times where coaches say, "Hey, okay, this guy's rolling. I'm going to stick with him, and I'm going to throw my regular substitution pattern out the window." That might be the case going forward. You might see Mitch make that adjustment if you have another big output or big performance from Dylan Harper and he's rolling. Well, you know what? I'm not going to make my usual substitution. I'm going to leave him out there, maybe switch up the rotation a little bit, maybe put him out there with De'Aaron Fox, with Steph Castle, because we have seen that combination this year a few times where all three of those guards are out there on the floor.
Okay, yeah. So Dylan had a really good game one. Moving on to the defense for the Spurs, they held the Knicks to 105 points. The Knicks came in as the hottest shooting team, but they only shot, 31% for the night. So I think if you hold a team to 105, you're doing a pretty good job, especially that the Knicks came in with the best offense in the playoffs. So I think that the number to watch is like kind of that second chance points. Those kind of were critical, where New York got 23 of those points. And then also the corner threes, and the corner threes are a little bit tougher because in a way it's almost like they want Victor, they want Luke kind of like staying off those inconsistent shooters, in the corners, but then, to patrol the paint. And that's kind of more of a strategy thing. What do you think about that? Just kind of their base defense and what they did in this game. And should they kind of just execute those trends a little bit more in game two?
Yeah, well, I think there were just a couple defensive breakdowns. That was the biggest key. And, the Knicks got us moving side to side a little bit. And when you get a defense moving side to side, or you're moving the defensive players, that opens up second chance points. You're not in position to box out and get rebounds. And so that was a huge problem for us there in the second half. In the fourth quarter, we couldn't keep Cat off the offensive glass. He was a problem for us. There were 3 or 4 possessions there where they were getting 2 and 3 looks at the basket. And in that situation in the fourth, there's no way you can allow the Knicks to get 2 or 3 looks every time down the floor. And so we've got to clean that up a little bit. But I just think that our defensive rotations and our communication fell apart a little bit. We allowed, like you said, some wide open 3 balls in the corner. One was Brunson, right in front of the Spurs bench. He was absolutely wide open. And when he caught the ball, in my mind, I'm thinking he's the one guy that you can't leave open. And so, it's a matter of paying attention to the game plan and paying attention to personnel. It's like if Josh Hart, if you're treating him cold, that would be like our code. He's cold. You don't run out to him to the 3-point line. You don't run out, so you force rotations and you leave a guy like Jalen Brunson open. So it's about paying attention to detail and knowing who's the hot shooter, who you're treating as cold, and guys that you absolutely cannot leave.
And we have seen the Spurs make these kind of adjustments. And we saw that, remember, in Game 7 against OKC, offensive rebounding was really hurting them. And then they made that adjustment where the Thunder, I think, only got like 1 or 2 offensive boards. One thing that I did see, unfortunately with this Knicks, the Knicks have a large fan base, is that, as I was at the game and I was looking at different sections every time out, there's just these little pockets of like 4 to 6 Knicks fans. And, of course, when they started winning in the fourth quarter, they got a little bit more, a lot louder. And so just kind of what is that? Just their fan base, kind of how they you still have a home court advantage, but it's like they kind of wreck it just a little bit, kind of make their influence in there.
Yeah, though, Paul, that's nothing new. I mean, look at there are several teams in the league. You go to the Bulls, the Celtics, now the Golden State Warriors, and the New York Knicks. Their fans travel. They travel better than any other fans in the league. They show up at arenas all over the country, and they're there to support their fans. So it's not like it's something new that we've seen before. We knew that there were going to be a lot of Knicks fans here. They've traveled everywhere throughout the series. They're rabid, supportive fans, and you give them a lot of credit for that. But it's not like we've had games here during the regular season where we got tons of yellow jerseys and the Lakers are playing, and you feel like it's almost a Laker takeover. And that's happens to a lot of arenas around the league where you have these Laker Nation, Bulls Nation, Knicks Nation that travels. And so that was to be expected.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's a large fan base. Now let's go to a place where you actually have some experience winning a title, and that is Madison Square Garden. After Game 2 on Friday, this series will be shifting over to MSG for Games 3 and 4 on the road. And so can you just talk about your experience in those finals in terms of like what these Spurs players are going to kind of be in store for? And I don't know if like, do you as these playoffs have gone along, have you been able to catch up with the guys and just kind of give them some of your influence of just kind of some of your past experiences?
Well, answering that one, no, I haven't. If a player's going to first off, I'm not traveling with the team, and that's when I run into guys. Most of the time, you see them in the hotel. And if I ever had anything to say, I might ask the player, like, hey, that shot in the fourth or that rotation there where a guy got a shot, what were you guys thinking there? And it'd be just in passing, but if a guy wants to ask me for advice, like, what do you think going into this game, or what advice would you have for me in this type of situation when I caught the ball out there? Then yes, I would definitely give it to him. But the biggest thing that I've come to trust, Paul, is the coaching staff, what Pop did over the years, what Mitch is doing now. A lot of competent coaches over there. I mean, our coaching staff is Rashard Lewis and Corliss Williamson, guys that have played and been in big games and big situations. So those guys are always there. Manu's around the practice facility almost every day. Timmy, the same thing. So they have a lot of guys to lean on, and the advice is there if they want it. So I just trust in those. In the coaching staff and the people that we have around. Secondly, if you're going into Madison Square Garden, obviously it's a different atmosphere than a lot of other places in the league. It gets really loud in there. New York is a zoo. It's like a stage that no other city can really match as far as the atmosphere around the city, around the arena, and so it's you're gonna have to block out all the noise. You're gonna have to trust in the game plan and everything that you've done all year long, and you're gonna have to go out there and play really smart basketball and block out the noise. And that's not easy to do there. It's a very intimidating place to play, but once the ball goes up, it's just basketball, and you got to do your best to block out the fan, to block out the noise.
Okay, yes, thank you for sharing your experience of being in that environment, especially in the NBA Finals before. And so we'll see. If the Spurs can for the Spurs, this is not a new situation. We saw in that Minnesota series they were down 0-1. They lost home court early, but then they came back. And so we'll see what happens on Friday. And then of course as the series shifts over to New York. So Sean, I want to thank you so much for taking some of your time out of your Thursday afternoon to record this episode, and make sure to listen to Sean on the broadcast when the Spurs season starts again over on FanDuel Sports Network Southwest. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.